Got a lot to discuss with criminal defense attorney Mark Eiglarsh, author of the book Be Happy by Choice, which sounds like a great book. I got to read that, Mark. Welcome. Great to have you with us.
Pleasure being here.
Okay, so let's start with the Weinstein case. I want to play another soundbite from his attorney about what the jury has to do now.
This is a case that should be about evidence. It shouldn't be about emotion. It shouldn't be about feelings, and it's not a popularity contest. And in this case, the evidence was all on our side.
Mark, what do you think? I mean, he's not a sympathetic character, but she's telling these jurors, shouldn't matter.
Yeah, listen, this is not a slam dunk for either side. You start with it's all testimonial evidence. So no scientific evidence, no busload of nuns to corroborate that this really did happen. But you've got the Cosby effect going for the prosecution. Cosby's in jail primarily because there was safety in numbers. There's enough for the jurors to say, okay, maybe one, maybe two, but all of these? Weinstein has 6 people accusing him of these predatory acts. On the other side, the defense does have a solid argument that some of the actions that the ladies engaged in were inconsistent with someone who you would typically think would be raped, like one of them allegedly having sex with him 2 weeks after she was raped.
Yeah, and the AP brought that up. They say the prosecution's task has been complicated because the women he's charged with raping kept in contact with Weinstein after the alleged encounters. But the assistant district attorney said that part of his scheme was to keep into contact with them so he could point to those encounters as evidence that nothing happened. Mark?
Yeah. There's arguments on both sides. That's why it's not a slam dunk. Do you believe one side that says, don't make anything of it? That was his scheme. He's a predator. That's what he's been doing for decades. But on the other side, they're saying, wait a second. Who would ever have consensual sex with someone that allegedly raped them? So these jurors are judging these witnesses and deciding what's true or what's not.
Yeah, they've heard from 6 women in this case. Okay, so let's talk about Avenatti. Here is how Professor Jonathan Turley, noted lawyer, and Avenatti apparently was one of his students and had asked to be a research assistant for him at one point. He says this: Michael's life was truly a rags to riches story of a kid who worked his way through school and rocketed to the top of elite lawyers. His rapid climb was followed by an equally rapid plunge from a great height. It was a modern Icarus tragedy of epic proportions. I mean, like, listen, he was lauded by the media endlessly a couple years back. He was on every night. And Mark, now he's got one major strike against him, awaiting charges or awaiting sentencing, but he's got 2 more big trials coming up as well.
Right. Let's not go to those other 2. Let's look at this. He's looking at serious time in federal prison for something that wasn't, as he suggested, legal actions by a lawfully abiding lawyer. He committed a crime. He extorted Nike. Just don't do it. Yeah, and they're recording, so that doesn't help. We had a little bit of what Senator Ben Sasse, who is not an Avenatti fan, had to say. And he noted that, listen, the left-wing media embraced this guy. They loved him. They put him on. And that he was part of a potential hit job against Justice Kavanaugh. He said Michael Avenatti's a D-list attorney, but a grade-A scumbag. Avenatti wasn't a real attorney. He just played one on TV. Our own Brit Hume tweeting, it should not be forgotten how many media notables fawned over this guy and how much airtime they gave him while doing so. What now, Mark? Right. Well, you know, jurors have found not necessarily that he's a scumbag, but that he is a convicted felon, and that's who he is, and he'll take that into his next trials.
Yeah, and those trials, I understand there's substantial time he'd be facing there as well. How does this all work? If you're sentenced in different federal courts or different state courts across the country, I mean, are those concurrent? Are they consecutive? How does it work?
Yeah, he could be getting consecutive time. So the federal guidelines, you add up what he's facing, and the judge can depart above the guidelines, below the guidelines. It's completely and thoroughly in the hands of the federal judge who will be sentencing him. All
right. Well, he'll have a sentencing coming up in this case, and then those 2 trials awaiting him past that. Mark, thanks for making time for us, and thank your wife, please, for letting us borrow you on Valentine's night. We owe her.
My pleasure. Happy Love Day, Shannon.
Thanks, Mark.